Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp.com, and I've been with them for a long time. BetterHelp is an online platform where we found that you can effectively communicate with your therapist. Now, you begin by filling out a questionnaire, and then you'll be matched with a therapist within a couple of days. And if that match isn't ideal for you, you can certainly make an adjustment there. Now, you're going to be encouraged to journal, and also they have the availability for group therapy on a wide array of topics, and I really like that. So as the need exists, go ahead and take the necessary steps to get the help that you need. And just know that BetterHelp has a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, so it indeed is a platform you can trust. There's a link below the video that will take you there. Hey, Team Healthy. I'm so glad to have you here for another episode of Unbound. Keep in mind that in the Unbound series, what I do is I field comments and questions from you, and then I comment on them during these videos, and it allows me to kind of get in the weeds with you on a day-by-day basis about some of the things that you're dealing with. You'll notice that Gus has his usual front row seat. We're going to have to be a little quiet today because Gus is sleeping. I'll go over my notes with him a little bit later on. Okay, today we're going to be talking about the passive-aggressive narcissists, and they can be so frustrating to have to deal with because they're so evasive and slippery. Now, I'm going to dive right in with some comments that an individual has made so that we can kind of get an introduction to it, and then I'm going to go to another set of comments as well that's right behind it. So the first person that writes in on this says, I keep getting fooled by covert narcissists. I'm starting to realize that my narc radar needs to tune in more on their passive-aggressive behaviors. Okay, let's just pause right there. Is passive-aggressiveness very common with the covert narcissist? And the answer is, oh yeah. Now, the overt narcissist can use it some. Typically, though, their pattern of anger is going to be more the open aggression. They don't leave a whole lot to the imagination. But then there are times when they can follow it up with silent treatment, etc. So they're capable. But the covert narcissist in particular is going to be the one that majors in the passive aggressiveness. So let's just kind of get that out. But this person goes on and says, after growing up in family dysfunction, passive aggression seems familiar and normal, but I've realized that aggression of any kind is control and it's not love. Okay, let's just pause right here and ask, when we talk about passive aggressiveness, what are we referring to? Let's keep in mind that it's a form of anger, and when we talk about anger, we're talking about people that are wanting to go into a place of self-preservation. The angry individual has felt slighted or offended, and so they're wanting to stand up for themselves, and they're wanting to let it be known, hey, I need to be attended to in a reasonable kind of way. Okay, so far so good. The aggressive person, and then especially the passive-aggressive person, says, well, yeah, I'm going to stand up for me, and I'm going to do it in such a way that it hurts you. Now, the passive-aggressive person takes it a little bit further, and their thinking is, well, but I want to make sure that I don't really put myself out there in such a way where you can just have lots of negatives that you can say about me. And so their form of anger can be more stealth. When we talk about passive aggressive anger, there are so many ways that they can play it out with it. For example, they can just withdraw. I'm ticked off at you, so I'm just not going to pay any attention to you. They can be proactively non-cooperative, which actually would be a pretty good descriptor of what the entirety of passive aggressiveness is. Or they can be evasive. They can use the silent treatment. They can be sullen and sulky. All sorts of different things like that. They can promise to do something, then they don't. That kind of thing. Now, I want us to see that built into the whole pattern of passive aggressiveness is a form of dishonesty. One of the things that the passive aggressive person wants to do is create a sense of plausible deniability. Okay? So let's suppose that the passive aggressive narcissist is just annoyed by your presence. And so you say something to that person and they just kind of stare off, or they'll say, yeah, right, and then you find out later on that they're talking ugly things about you behind your back. And so then you go and you confront them and you say, hey, is there a problem between you and me? And the passive aggressive person, because they haven't yelled or they haven't screamed or they haven't said anything directly to you, can say, I don't even know what you're talking about. That's the plausible deniability. You must be having a bad day. And so not only do they treat you in a form of disdain, but then they come back and they do victim shaming. You're the victim of their bad behavior, but they shame you for having confounded, confusing kinds of reactions. And that's what I mean when I say they're so slippery and all. And so it's built upon dishonesty. They can just deny all day long about why they don't feel the way they do. Now, what is the goal of the passive aggressive person? Well, goal number one is they want to be in control over you, okay? It's their way of saying, if you think that you're going to call the shots around here, oh, you have such a different thing coming toward you. Second, they want to punish you. If you're going to be too different, if you're going to not play along with their schemes, it's their way of saying, well, I'm going to just make things really uncomfortable for you. And in fact, I hope that I can do it in such a way where you feel really awkward. I want you to feel like the biggest fool on the planet. I love it when that happens. And then a third thing they're wanting to accomplish is they want to maintain their control and their punishment with the least amount of personal vulnerability. You see, the openly aggressive person, they'll be in controlling and punishing, but they're so loud and boisterous and overt that you can at least come along and say, well, why would I want to pay any attention to someone like you when you're being such a jerk? The passive aggressive person thinks, well, I'm taking that one off the table. And so they want to have the least amount of vulnerability. They want to offer you the least open complaints that they can, that you can have against them. So it's very sly. It's very slippery. Now, let's go to another question or comment, set of comments here. Another person writes in and says, the most aggressive of all passive aggressive actions is probably their constant criticism and the exclusive focus on your negative sides. And the most hidden passive aggressive is probably the way they talk to you. It always feels like you're sitting in a courtroom being accused of something, or you're sitting in an interrogation room. So what I pick up on with these comments is that individual is saying, when I'm around that individual and I know they're ticked, but they're being kind of passive about it, what I pick up on is just this chronic undertow of irritability. I can never please that person. And so when I say something, they may just come out with a little barb that's like, would you tell me where you're coming from? You make no sense. Or when I reveal a plan or an interpretation, they can come along and say, do you realize that is going to be so much of a failure? And they are more than happy to point out what they see as wrong and all. And then again, we go back to their plausible deniability. When you come along and say, you're being so negative, then they can come back and say, I'm not the negative person here. You're the one that's coming up with all these crazy schemes. I'm just trying to be realistic. And so they can have this edginess, this irritability, this complaining, this griping, this criticism. And yet, when you try to call them out on it, here comes the slippery part. No, the problem's not me. The problem is you. I know that so many of you who are listening right now can think, oh, I have to pull my socks and shoes off when I'm trying to count how many times, I got all these times I can remember, then I have to count on my toes and all. This happens so many times. That's what they do. They're really good at that. Let's come up with some understanding of what you're dealing with. The passive aggressive narcissism is the ultimate conniver. They're trying to figure out how they can mess with you, how they can make you feel awkward and uncomfortable in such a way where they just want you to have this chronic questioning about your own legitimacy. It's the ultimate gaslighting. They constantly are looking at ways to express their agitation toward you in such a way that they can save face for what that's worth. So, like I say, when you come out and say, I'm really uncomfortable with how you're treating me, they can say, well, I'm not the problem. You're the one that's raising your voice, or you're the one that's complaining all the time. And so they're constantly wanting to save face. In fact, they may even take it a little bit further and say, I'm here, I'm available, I'm willing to work with you. You're just impossible. And they're constantly going to come back and put it onto you. And then, if they can make you look like a fool in your response to them, then all the better. One of the things that passive aggressive narcissists absolutely love is when you finally break and you yell or you say something that's really unruly. You're one of the most impossible people I've ever met, or I can't stand it when you treat me this way, or you're constantly trying to sabotage everything I do. And then they can come back and say, how am I supposed to engage with someone that's just like this? And so they love it when they're able to play you for the fool. So it's going to be of utmost importance for you to realize that you're dealing with an absolute master manipulator. And one of the worst things about the passive aggressiveness, and this goes back to their commitment to dishonesty, you're not going to be able to get them to say, I really do have some anger issues, don't I? Because they won't say it. In their mind, it's like, I don't have anger issues. If I'm not screaming and shouting and cursing, I don't have anger issues. And then if you're over there screaming and shouting and cursing, it's like, go talk to that person. They're the bad one. And so keep in mind that you're dealing with a conniver. You're dealing with somebody who is in a high power mode, and they want to let you know, I'm a force to be reckoned with, and you are going to do what I want you to do. The primary thing that you're going to have to realize if you're dealing with a passive aggressive person is this is not somebody that you can have any kind of meaningful connection with, because it's all about power, it's all about control, and just the evasiveness that's goes with it. So when you understand that you've got someone of this ilk, your best shot is to keep them out of your inner circle because they're not trustworthy at all. Again, going back to their dishonesty. And you're probably going to need to learn how to master the art of the gray rock. You remember that? There's nothing more boring than a gray rock. And so when the passive aggressive person says that you're a difficult individual, just give them a boring response. I know that's how you see it. Or when they say, well, you're the one who's messing things up. Again, I'm going to say something like, well, we each have our different interpretations, don't we? And you don't want to get into prosecuting them or trying to make them see the light because it's like, oh, it's working. I'm winning, because I'm not going to do that. So, Team Healthy, I know that you're dealing with somebody who's very unhealthy when they come at you with this. Your task is to make sure you don't take the bait and stand in your own self-trust and realize I'm just going to go ahead and take my initiatives and be who I am, and they can do their merry little passive-aggressive stuff. I'm on to it. I'm not playing along with it. Okay, now this is a hard one, and I know that many of you are going to be working on it, but one of the things we're going to do is we're going to keep bringing more videos towards you so you can understand the nature of what you're dealing with. If you've not already subscribed, go ahead and do so, and we'll keep more videos coming towards you. Again, if you have your own comments or questions, put them underneath in the comment section, and I'll pick up on them, and we'll have more of these episodes of Unbound. Now, you know that I do have my sponsors, and one of my sponsors is BetterHelp.com. If you have a need for online therapy, and it's proven to be very affordable, accessible, and successful, go ahead and go through the link we have below there. Get the help that you need. Also, make sure you go to my website. And on my website, I have my courses. They're very extensive, and I put a lot of work in them. It will require a lot of work out of you. But we have courses on anger management, having boundaries, finding yourself despite the controller's efforts to keep you bound, and having healthy relationships. So we have good courses like that. There are at least 25 teaching videos with guided questions, etc., handouts. And then also we have my webinars, which are 90-minute PowerPoint presentations, lots of articles on the website, along with access to my books, etc. Okay, I know when you're dealing with that passive-aggressive person, they want to make you look like a fool. The more you understand what they're doing, then I'm hoping you can say, thanks but no thanks, your tactics don't work on me. We're Team Healthy, and we stand for peace and steadiness, and I hope that can include you.